Hello, welcome to Dynasty Degens. I am very happy to be joined by Maddog, and we have a special guest tonight. I'll kick over to you first, Maddog. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. Happy to be on days off for the weekend. How about you guys?
Doing well, man. We're doing some Dynasty QB Carousel tonight, and I'm joined happily by my buddy Bradley at FF Stalder. So I thought you were Stadler for a really long time, and I apologize. I was I was pronouncing your name Stadler, and I was dropping your name in the chat, Stalder everywhere. So I apologize, man. But how you doing?
I'm great. Stadler is a common misspelling, and I didn't realize that this was a common thing, that this people were doing this so often until the last couple of years. I moved to Michigan, and the DMV had it as Stadler, and I had to go back because they had put it wrong on my driver's license, or I get mail all the time and it says Bradley Stadler. And I do have an uncle. His name is Craig. So Craig Stalder. But there is a professional golfer. I don't know if he's still active right now. Craig Stadler. He's known as the Walrus. And so very often, if you're thinking, why was he nicknamed Walrus, is because he looks like a walrus. So if you want to look up Craig Stadler, you can do that. But the Stadler name, it's not an uncommon thing, so it's totally okay. I played off pretty well, but there have been people Stadler right now. Actually, there have been people who've called me up and said, "Hey, is this Bradley Stadler?" And I say, "No, you have the wrong number because that's not me."
Oh, he does look like a walrus, man. It's the mustache that really gets you. He is through and through just a very walrus looking guy, man. Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, so how is your cousin? Your cousin has almost the same last name as you, but with just one letter off. So that
was a joke. It was a joke.
I was dead. Fair. I don't even know. I'm just getting to know your last name, so I don't know what's going on right now.
We're having a good time here on the Dynasty.
We are, man. I know I've been having a good time with you. So we're in a startup right now. We're having some fun. It's a player profiler startup, so it's all everybody that does content, and we're
shout out to Red Staff.
Yes, dude. I love Coach. Coach is in there. We were talking about that backstage, but before we get into all of this stuff, but we're going to talk quarterbacks today, but I want to get to know you a little bit. So how'd you get into content, and how'd you get into the player profiler scene? I got a little bit backstage, but I want everybody to hear about how you came on and your backstory a little bit.
Yeah, it all started back when the coronavirus pandemic came about. Like many of us, we were stuck at home. And at that time, I was teaching. I was a math teacher at a charter school, and I was teaching math from home. And so when I wasn't teaching math from home, I was watching my kids. And when they were napping, I was playing fantasy football. So all of these things had started to, and I'd been doing pretty well, like in my independent leagues. I had started doing some Dynasty. I had been in home leagues for about a decade before, but I hadn't done any content. And then I went to the hospital because my wife and I were expecting number 3. And we went in the hospital, and I just decided, I'm going to create a fantasy football dedicated Twitter account. I'm going to start just posting some opinions or thoughts or whatever it was on fantasy football. I'm going to get started with that. And then as I started following some people, because I had been listening to podcasts already, like Mike Clay, Matthew Berry, like the staples, the ESPN staples, I really enjoyed listening to Stefania and those 3 in particular, Field Yates, those 4. So I had started doing all of that, and then I followed Mike Clay on Twitter, and one of the things that he posted was his projections. And I thought to myself, you are a math major. Math, fantasy football is just math, right? We get points because they do things. So if we can project when they're doing the things, maybe there's an advantage to be had here. So I spent time during the spring and the summer of 2020 creating projections for each of the 32 teams. I've refined that process over the last 5-6 years, but it started with, if Mike Clay can do it, I can do it, and maybe there's a little bit of hubris, a little bit of pride there, thinking that I've never done this before and now I'm going to try it. But I did a first round of it, and I dropped it in one of my Dynasty League chats, and I said, hey guys, like, I just tried this out, creating these projections, and what do you think? So a couple guys looked through, they said, oh, this is interesting, blah, blah, blah. And one guy privately DM'd me, and he said, hey, how did you do this? I want to also do this. And I said, great. Hey, sure, I'll share it with you. And his name is Billy Muzio. If you know Billy, fast forward a couple years, Billy became the #1 ranker in all of fantasy football, and was a consistent top performer in terms of projections. From that point, Billy, and I.
Wait a second. So are you? I don't mean to interrupt you, but is this a Mark Zuckerberg situation?
Are you
the Winklevoss twins right now? Did he steal your formula?
Well, you can read between the lines. No, Billy does his own work. Billy is I would say, when he was going full time in the industry, he was the hardest worker that I'd ever been around, and he is so formative. He's so sharp, knows so many things, and offers a different perspective than what I was offering. Which is great. It was an iron sharpens iron moment. And so we created these projections, and we decided how are we going to share these with other people? Well, why don't we start a podcast? So we started a podcast where we debated our projections, like, back and forth. I remember our first debate was whether it was Dan Arnold or Max Williams is the Arizona Cardinals tight end, right? Which one should be the guy? I was the Dan Arnold side, for what it's worth, but it was a lot of fun having these debates back and forth, and it just helped us become better fantasy players, fantasy analysts. And so after a year of doing that podcast together, we were picked up by Fantasy Data. We worked with Fantasy Data for a year, and then Billy worked for FTN for a little bit. And a few other things. There were a lot of things that Billy was able to do independently. And then I started doing things on my own. I started doing Best Ball Fantasy for a couple years. And then Theo Greminger reached out to me and said, hey, Bradley, you're doing a great job with this independent podcast. Why don't you become podcast partners? So I said, sure, became podcast partners at Player Profile. That's where I kind of gotten in. And then over the summer 2 years ago, I met with Matt Kelly in person, and I started just talking with him about, like, the news that I was listening to and some of the depth charts, because I was creating my own projections. So I had to be in tune with who was, like, going to be at the top of the depth charts. And Rico Dowdle was the RB2 for the Cowboys 2 years ago, but nobody knew that at the time. There was a lot of question. Is it Malik Davis? Is it someone else? Like, who's going to be the RB2? And I said, well, clearly it's going to be Rico Dowdle because of what the beat writers are telling us, what all these things. And Matt was like, nobody's heard of any of this. So, like, the fact that you have an in, this is a big deal. So then he called me up a couple weeks later and said, do you want to run a news desk for Player Profiler? And I said, yes. So fast forward almost 2 years. That's been my role here at Player Profiler. Go to playerprofiler.com/news and just bookmark that website. It is like a stream of just news items. You just keep scrolling and scrolling. There's videos for some of them. There's great insights. Sometimes it's just quick hitting stuff. Sometimes it's me. Sometimes it's Jeremiah. Sometimes, it's Brendan, it's Johnny, it's Mike Lindbergh, it's Chev, it's Blake. I'm forgetting a bunch of other guys. Jake Lewis has been crushing. Jesse Baldwin's been crushing it. Like, there's a lot of guys who have been contributing. Lucas is back from his honeymoon. He's crushing it. Like, there's a lot of guys who are putting in a lot of good work on the news desk. And it's great to see, young guys getting their foothold in the industry and low stakes, getting news items out and then offering their opinion of whether it is going to move the needle for fantasy managers. And that's what we want to bring to the table is how would a fantasy manager, how should they react to this news? Like, what is the news, and then how should they react are really key parts of providing it there. So I run the news desk, and I also have a couple shows, Stack Hunters with Dan Williamson and Man versus Machine as well on Player Profiler Network.
Yeah, I have all of that stuff right here. I forgot that we share a StreamYard, and I popped in and Bradley was already in here. Just popped, his head was up here and everything, and he was ready to go. And I was like, well, wait a second, brother. Like, where are you coming from? It sounds like you need to send Rico Dowdle a fruit basket, like an edible arrangement or something, you know? send him a little treat.
Uncle Rico.
You know? Uncle Rico. Well, we already broke the ice, but here's my favorite question to ask a lot of people that are first-time guests. Your favorite TV show of all time. You know, I think there's a lot of repeats, but hit me with your favorite TV show of all time, and then tell me the character from that show that you'd most like to be in a fantasy league with, like a dynasty league with.
Ooh, okay. I really like Dexter. So Dexter Resurrection, Dexter Original Sin, like the concept is, I'm a sucker for drama action with a male lead that has a critical flaw. So like 24, I love 24. I love Dexter. I love House. Like, I need a strong male lead with like a critical flaw. Is
his critical flaw killing people?
Yes, that would consist of a critical flaw. That would even like,
imagine if you met your dream girl, like the woman of your dreams, everything was perfect, but she just liked to kill sometimes, you know, like she was just like, she just has one critical flaw, and she just
a dark passenger.
every once in a while, she just goes out and kills somebody. So,
and Jeremiah put in the chat, Bosch. Yes, I love Bosch and Bosch Legacy. Like, those are some great shows. Shout out to Jer for great taste. Who would be the character from that show? Deborah Morgan. Every time that I'm
she's the
in
sister,
it, she's the sister. She is
the
sister. Every time that I would snipe Deborah in a draft, I know that she'd just be cussing up a storm. She would just be like, F this, F that, and F you. And like, just like she would not hold back. There wouldn't be this politeness. And, you know, if I sent her a bad trade offer, she would just flip a table. Like, please, like, this is what I want as a reaction in my dynasty leagues. I don't want like laissez-faire dynasty managers or players. I want people who care, and Deborah Morgan would care.
Yeah, you need passion in your leagues. That's what a lot of leagues lack. And I'm excited to start this new league with you guys because we got Coach in there, and this man is full of passion. There's a lot of passionate guys in there.
La passion.
Well, so, yeah, a lot of these like long-standing dynasty leagues, that's what they're missing. That's people that lose their passion. A lot of guys that have kids, and you know, we have kids. We still have passion.
We do have kids.
Yeah. Dana, wait, you have 3 kids, 4 kids, 3 kids, 2 kids.
2.
Bradley's got 5. He's got
brother. Do you sleep?
He looks good for 5 kids, dude. He looks like strong and well rested. You look well rested, man. You do. You are a principal and you have 5 kids. Like I would probably be, I don't know, dude. I'd have bags under my eyes. I feel like I would definitely be weathered a little bit.
I have some gray hairs. I'll be 34 in December. So like,
yeah.
I got some gray hairs that are coming. I found a couple grays in the beard. I'm finally growing out the beard a little bit. Like I found some grays in there. Yeah, look, the patchiness is really crushing me, you know. But look, here I'm giving it the best effort that I can.
The left side is stronger than the right side, I think, for you. It's fine. It looks good. All right, let's talk quarterbacks right now. So let's segue that into quarterbacks. We are going to do a little quick hitter just to open this up a little bit. I chose a bunch of guys that are in the same range. I think they're difficult decisions, I think, for most people, just because I chose a guy that is either in that range that has shown out last year or has that promise, or they had struggling years, like you're going to see in a couple of comparisons here. But the first two quarterbacks that I'm going with is Justin Herbert and Caleb Williams. So, Dane, I'll start with you. Where are you going with that? As far as if you're going to be met in a startup, do you want Caleb Williams or Justin Herbert?
Man, you started with some spice. I'm going to be taking Caleb Williams. I think he came out as a rookie, and maybe he didn't live up to the generational talent that we labeled him with, but he threw for just over 3,500 yards. He rushed for just shy of 500 with, basically no O-line protecting him. He was running for his life. They addressed some of those needs in the offseason. They went and got Ben Johnson. I think Rome Odunze takes a step. They're going to draft some other pieces that solidify that offense for him. And I just think he has room to grow. As for ADP, I think his value can go up as opposed to Herbert's. You see Harbaugh and Roman in there. They went and they signed Najee. They're probably going to pick up another running back. I think Herbert maybe statistically isn't at his ceiling. He has Ladd McConkey. They probably add another piece. But he has to go back to his sophomore year to be able to grab some kind of a value and climb the charts much more than Caleb Williams would have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're looking at his ceiling quite yet. We saw his ceiling after you're right, his sophomore year, the big year that he had. But Caleb does have to make a big step forward to move into that. I'm looking at the stats right now. It's really not that off, when we're talking about production wise, and everyone's trying to say that Caleb had a down year last year. Bradley, where do you stand on these two guys? How do you feel about Caleb and Justin Herbert?
Yeah, I think if I'm looking at like who's going to give me the spike weeks, if I'm in like a best ball dynasty format, give me Caleb Williams. I think the upside is so massive on a week to week basis. There's no doubt about the Ben Johnson ad, the DJ Moore, is such an underrated wide receiver one. I agree that Rome does take a step. I don't know if it's going to be a full step, like a full couple steps. He was embarrassingly bad for fantasy last year. It was borderline disaster zone. The reality is for Rome, he needs to make a seismic leap to pay off both the dynasty and the redraft value that he's getting taken out right now. And it's gonna take a lot. We only see about 6% of players make that kind of leap every year. So are you making that bet? It's a tough spot. But if I'm playing week to week, set my lineup, set it and forget it, it's Justin Herbert. Last year, Herbert there was an adjustment in the offense after the first 5 games or so. Herbert was not throwing the ball very much. He was outside the top 20 of quarterbacks every single week in the first 5 weeks that Harbaugh was there. And then things started to click. It's the efficiency. Harbaugh runs an efficient offense. And even though we see a significant downtick in the passing attempts for Justin Herbert, you add one more piece to the passing game, as y'all mentioned before. You add one more piece and look out, Justin Herbert. We're talking about a 30 passing touchdown season back again. And last year, only 3 interceptions, and he set a career high in rushing attempts, rushing yards. Like this is JJ McCarthy, but better. Like Justin Herbert is better JJ McCarthy. And now Herbert is a second year under Harbaugh. It's going to take over a year for Caleb Williams to make an adjustment to the Chicago Bears offense, because especially if you've been listening to the Coach Speak Index over the last couple months, the Bears are planning to move Caleb Williams from the shotgun to under center, and he has in no capacity at all in his career played under center. Like almost all of his snaps have come out of the shotgun in high school, in college, and last year almost all of it was out of the shotgun. And so that may take some adjustment time, which is why, especially if you're looking to win in year one, you may be disappointed in the first couple weeks of Caleb Williams in the short term. Long term, like we have to like what Ben Johnson did with the Lions. Like there has to be a lot to love. The offensive line, things that they've addressed this offseason have to give us optimism. But if I want a set it, forget it guy, not need to worry about it, no volatility, Justin Herbert's my guy.
Yeah, I'm piggybacking on that a little bit. You know, we look at Harbaugh, we see the ecosystem that he builds. He builds a safe environment for his quarterbacks. He looks at the guy and he says, okay, this is what you do well. This is what you don't do well. We're going to mask what you don't do well, and we're going to just enhance what you do well. And we saw that with JJ McCarthy. They just built that team and they built that system up so that he could just be propped up. And I'm not saying JJ is a bad quarterback by any means, but they limited his usage to the point where they could only succeed in that offense. It was only, plus yardage and plus plays and stuff like that. And that's what we see with Harbaugh in year 2. I think that we're talking about, you're right. I think he's going to make a jump, and the Bears scare me because we're always in transition. We're always changing. We're always taking a very young quarterback and putting him in a new situation. We saw that with Justin Fields. We didn't see a massive improvement with Justin Fields, but we saw what he could do with a stable environment with the Steelers, where they were set it and they said, this is how you should play. And they didn't limit him to a little tiny box where they're making him play just strictly out of the shotgun, or, you know what I mean? Like, it was a play your game. And he did fairly well in the first few games of the season. I will take Justin Herbert here, but I agree that we're talking about boom games. Caleb Williams is going to be your guy. So it's Herbert's the safe play. Caleb is the I need 35-point game type guy, and you just plug them and hope for the best. But I think it's going to be up and down for Caleb, where Justin Herbert has a really steady ride for this year. All right, let's kick it over. So we got 2 second-year quarterbacks, and this is a fun one for me just because we saw one guy that Bradley and I have gone back and forth on this. Bradley and I had some fun on the timeline. I love the back and forth that you and I have. We always butt heads with values, and it's fun, man. And I was like, I got to get you on the podcast, and this is really what actually lined this up. So it's Drake May or Bo Nix. And this is the dynasty value of these guys. This is who you want in your lineup. And we'll just say short term. Let's talk about these guys this year. Who do we think has the better year between Drake May and Bo Nix? Bradley, I'm going to defer to you. And this is probably not the conversation that started this. We were talking dynasty value and how you would rank these guys. But where do you see the outcome of these 2 guys? Because we do see Drake May going ahead of Bo Nix now in startups. Whether that's valid or not, it's up for debate. But how do you feel? I know you feel strongly about one side here, so I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I feel very strongly about this. It's clearly Bo Nix. Like, Bo Nix has everything that Drake May wishes he had. Bo Nix has the quarterback, the coach that knows how to get him to be a good quarterback. Are we sure that Vrabel can do that with Drake May? I think the answer is no. We are not sure that Vrabel can do that. Like, he got lucky that Ryan Tannehill was able to make things happen. But remember, Vrabel is a linebacker by trade and defensive-minded coach. That's his lens. That's his view. Fine. But think about all the things that Sean Payton brings to his team. We have seen Sean Payton offenses for decades function greatly with Drew Brees. Yes, he has so many things for him, but he also had some things he had to overcome. He was not very tall. He was not tall. He was barely 6 foot. We think about the other quarterbacks in the league who are not very tall. He was able to overcome that, partly because Sean Payton recognized that was the flaw and didn't allow that to be exposed very often. So we think about what Sean Payton did in his rookie year to allow Bo Nix to thrive. There were times where Courtland Sutton was down the field. There were times where Marvin Mims was down the field, but it was also dumping the ball off to Javonte Williams, getting the ball out quickly to his guy, like also rushing the ball. He knew when Bo Nix could take off. I have Bo Nix significantly ahead of Drake May this year, not just from a coaching perspective. There's also the offensive line. The offensive line for Denver is much stronger. We'll leave it at that. The other part is we talk about the weapons. I mentioned Sutton and Marvin Mims. Denver just signed Evan Ingram. The New England Patriots' best offensive pass catcher is debate between Hunter Henry and Demario Douglas. They need a pass catcher. And this was one of the points I brought up on the X timeline, was that, yes, the Patriots, so much of the Drake May argument for value in Dynasty is assuming that he's going to get a wide receiver one. Guess what? They swung and missed last year on Brandon Ayuk. They swung and missed this year on T. Higgins. They're probably going to swing and miss on Travis Hunter because he's probably not going to be available to them at when they're drafting at 4, right? So they're going to have to get a Tet McMillan, but the only way to do that is to trade down. They can't afford. There's so many other holes on this Patriots team that they need to fill. To go from like Drake May in 4 years could be outperforming Bo Nix, but are you willing to take a loser team for 3 more years when you could just get Bo Nix, where you know the ecosystem is good, you know the coaching staff is good, you know that all these pieces are in place, and Bo Nix has proven it. I mean, we're talking about a guy, maybe he doesn't have quarterback 1 on the week ceiling, but quarterback 12, quarterback 9, quarterback 7, quarterback 2, quarterback 8, quarterback 9. Like, sure, he's going to get you, again, this quality consistency. He was the quarterback 7 last year. This is Bo Nix in total points. Look, I think this is where the dynasty managers really want something to happen and project it. But so many other things have to go right for you to actually hit on this parlay of Drake May. And I think that's how I'd like to describe May, is it's a parlay, whereas Bo Nix is the guaranteed take. So, I mean, what's wild to me is May in our startup went at the 2-8. And, you know, Retzlaff took him at the 2-8. Fine. But coming back at the 3-4, give me Bo Nix at the 3-4 over Drake May at the 2-8, even just straight up, much less at that almost an entire round value.
Yeah. I'll kick it to you, Maddog, and then I'll go in and give my take a little bit here. You're muted, brother.
Sorry, boys. Yeah, I think Brad laid out pretty much all my notes that I had on this, but when I'm playing, I want to try and hit that ceiling, like you had mentioned. And I think May brings that. You know, we know Bo Nix is polished because he was in college since I was 10 years old. Like, I think what you see is what you're going to get with him. He is a product of Sean Payton. And if I'm taking a swing, I don't want to take a quarterback that might fall into that range of Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins. I want to go and try and get that QB1 that can be the cornerstone of my roster, which will be Drake May. And I also think he has value insulation right now. People are still going to believe in that parlay that you laid out. So that's why I'm going to take that. And rather than see his value maybe drop faster like Bo Nix might, that's why I'm going to take Drake May. I think the Patriots will figure it out and we're going to see that ceiling.
Yeah, I think everything that you said, Bradley, is very valid with Nix. I think that we're talking about somebody that we've already seen produce. We've already seen what he can do. And that coaching tree that he's underneath right now is very solid. Like, he's going to be protected. He's going to have that propped up value as far as the team build goes, because he knows how to build around a quarterback. He knows what to do as far as how to give you the best possible situation that you need to succeed in the NFL. And I don't doubt that at all. When I look at Drake May, though, I see somebody that can process at a different level. He looks at the field. He can go through his reads just as fast, if not faster. And it's not necessarily somebody that I think could possibly outproduce Nix this year. And that's right. And I think you're totally right on that. Nix is going to probably give you more fantasy points this year, just based off of the fact that the Patriots have a lot of promises that they need to keep up as far as the weapons they need to provide, the help they need to provide. There's a lot of things that need to go right for him to actually be that sole-on producer, but I think he's not going to give you dead points as far as taking them in the range that you're talking about right now. Like we got Fantasy Fitness talking about his rushing upside. If you're looking at him from a college prospect, they're not close as far as their rushing ability goes. And I think that he was probably asked to run a little bit more this year, just based off of the packages they were running. But I don't know if that's going to be in his game moving forward in the NFL. And that's up for debate. Who knows what's going to happen with that? I think you're right though, Maddog, is you're going with ceiling for May. And then we're talking about the best possible scenario that we could see with Nix. Do we think that Nix could improve his stats from this year? Like, Bradley, do you think that he's going to go higher than what he did this year? Or are we looking at somebody that's already peaked as far as value goes?
That's a good question. I think there are a couple things that the coaching staff would come back to Nix and say, especially at the beginning of the year, Nix had struggled. There were a couple games where he went 12 for 25, right? The first 2 games of the season, he threw 0 touchdowns and threw 4 interceptions. Like there was a slow start to the season there. I think so if he irons out a couple of those like outlier games, the rest of the way, there really wasn't a bad game that Bo Nix had. There was one where he was 18 of 35, 2 picks against Cleveland, but Cleveland also extremely difficult defense. He cleans up a couple things, and then you add one more weapon. And I think that the Broncos are in a position to add, whether it's in the late first round, in the second round, an Omarion Hampton, a Travion Henderson, some running back that they were rushing Javonte Williams out there 3.5 yards a carry. You're going to get, a better, your offense is going to move more cleanly. You're going to get fewer 4th downs or 3rd and longs when you're hand the ball off and you're actually getting yardage. So I think there is more upside in terms of the Broncos, like ancillary piece. The addition of Evan Ingram helps the Broncos. Like there are pieces that we anticipate can still be added. Will Marvin Mims be a full-time player? I think if the answer is yes, completely like pants off, wheels up for the Broncos, because Marvin Mims is one of those players that I was telling people 2 years ago, like draft him at the 1-2 turn in your dynasty leagues. And I felt like a fool for 1.5 years until he started like exploding at the end of the season. So look, I think there is still untapped ceiling for Bo Nix and this entire Denver Broncos offense, given some of the additions that they've made and also some of the additions that I anticipate they could make as well.
Yeah. I want to see Marvin Mims. People just fade these wide receivers too early nowadays, man. And it's incredible that even 5 years ago, we were talking about a 3-year window for wide receivers. And now it is you better show me something year 1 or you're dead in the water for me. We see that with guys like Jameson Williams and everybody that they're coming back to buy, but ultimately they were free about a year ago. So I think that Nix is probably looking at, I think this is just me looking around the room, looking at their schedule, seeing that they have a 2 times harder schedule this year. And we're looking at possibly some regression as far as him having tape, but we're looking at May in the same position. May is going to have tape on him. They're going to look at him, and they're 2nd-year quarterbacks for a reason. We see CJ Stroud that really struggled with the adjustments that he had to make. And you do have to make the adjustments 2nd year. It's up for debate. I think these guys are in the same range for me. And it's not so much that I have Drake May significantly higher. I think that, yeah, it's the value of what I see, the way that he plays the game, how he goes about his business. And yeah, you can't argue that we're looking at somebody in a much better position with Nix. There's no way that you can argue that as somebody that's looking through the lens of Drake May. And there's not much of an argument you can make where Drake May is ever going to be in a better position, because until we start seeing those dominoes fall for the Patriots, it is what it is. But I take the ceiling with Drake May and I die by that sword. And that's really where I lie as far as a dynasty manager goes. But if I'm looking in a redraft lens, I'm taking Knicks all day this year. And that's comfortable for me. And that's, you see the environment that he's in. He's safe. But Patriots have to do a year one turnaround. Essentially, they have to go in and they have to grab, you're right, a Ted McMillan or somebody of that, Nabuka, anybody that can be that wide receiver one. And then they have to double tap later and get like I don't know, like a Jaden Higgins, or like Higgins might actually be a little.
Well, they
too
tried
early
to get Jalen Polk
and
Javon Baker last year. They tried, double tapping in day 2 and day 3, early day 3, and neither of them panned out for various reasons. So I have concerns, not just from a coaching, but organizationally. The New England Patriots are just not a good, well-run organization anymore.
Yeah, I agree with that, just because of the fumbles that they had. They're bringing in an entirely new coaching tree right now, and I don't know how much they're going to influence the draft this year, but I agree. I don't have a lot of faith in them choosing the right guys, because I watched them take Tyquan Thornton over the likes of DK Metcalf, and then I saw them take who did they take the year that Pickens went in the second or the third? I don't remember. They fumbled 4 or 5 years in a row. They missed on AJ Brown. They missed on these guys, and they're taking guys that are not even on the roster anymore. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that Drake May can be one of the guys that we saw succeed. He succeeded relatively well, considering he was throwing the ball to Kayshon Boutte and Hunter Henry last year. If you had one legitimate option outside of those guys, I think this is a different conversation, but that's just a hypothetical, and that's really what his value is right now. It is that if they do this, and if they do that,
signing is he's may not be back. The ACL, it may be a mid-season ACL thing. So even if he does get
Bradley,
back,
haven't you been watching him juke trash cans and run around in cones and stuff?
Yeah, he's doing lunges on the Bozu ball, like he's ready to go.
A post apex wide receiver coming off an ACL tear. Yes,
I am seeing a lot of go by Stephon Diggs videos right now. I saw a couple shorts actually, I think on our channel, not too long ago, buying Stephon Diggs. So yeah, I mean, hey, this is let's wait and see kind of situation, but it's going to be a fun conversation next year, and then maybe even the year after. So I might give you your flowers this year if this just all falls the way that I think it might fall. Let's kick it over to the next one, and I think this is going to be a fun one for everybody involved. This is one of your guys. We're talking CJ Stroud or Jordan Love. And the Mad Dog, I'm going to just flip-flop and go to you first for these guys.
Okay, so CJ Stroud last year was running for his life. We heard after the Super Bowl that people were sympathizing with Mahomes for how much he was pressured in that game, but statistically speaking, that's what Stroud was dealing with every game last year. They lost Diggs, they lost Dell, Nico was injured for part of it, and then they went and dismantled the O-line even more this year. It does shrink his ceiling, because I think that he doesn't have any rushing capabilities, but I think he's in for a backup or for a bounce back season. Sorry, I think Houston does have a rebound. They go and fill in some pieces on that draft, and I'll take him over Jordan Love, who was battling injuries last year, but ultimately I feel like he's just going to be a game manager as well. I think he's a trailer and not a truck on that team. They don't have any elite wide receivers since Devontae Adams. Josh Jacobs is still there. He's going to be that workhorse. And I don't really think Matt LaFleur goes and changes too much of that scheme to make Jordan Love excel.
Bradley, as a Packers fan, give me your take, man. You go in CJ Stroud or Jordan Love, and I want to take all that bias away from you, man. I don't want to hear anything about how much you love and how how great he is in person and stuff. Like, I want to just hear about strictly analyst talk here.
I think a bounce back is in store for CJ Stroud. The Houston Texans understand that it's their offensive line that needs help. They moved off of Tunsil because he was just too expensive. Last year, the Houston Texans were the 19th offensive line in terms of PFF pass block grade. So they were not disastrous. Like, I know that there was a lot of bad. It looked bad, but overall, it was more just league average. There were some days where he was running for his life, but it was exacerbated, exactly, Maddog, by the injuries to the receivers. And that was what was devastating to CJ Stroud. When you lose your alpha, Nico Collins, and also even when he was healthy, there were multiple moments where he was called back on 40 and 50-yard touchdowns by penalty. There was some penalty that brought it back, something stupid. There were at least 3 different times where we missed out on probably a 15-point play, a 12-point play that just got called back for whatever reason. So I think the CJ Stroud on the daily, when you lose Dell, and we're going to be probably without Dell again this year, and without Diggs, like the Houston Texans, they have Christian Kirk back, and Kirk, I think, is an underrated player. He has been rising in the best ball streets, the redraft best ball streets right now, but getting an outlet like Christian Kirk, middle of the field, would be helpful. And I think that they're not done. I would look at, especially given that Tank Dell is expected to miss most of this season, that the Houston Texans look at maybe a day 2 wide receiver just to make sure that, they have insurance, especially with Kirk coming off of an injury. I would take CJ Stroud still over Jordan Love. Love has some big boom plays. He does not hyper target his guys like his predecessor Aaron Rodgers would do. And that provides some problems in terms of consistency. The other part is, you mentioned the coaching staff doesn't want Jordan Love to be the one to carry the load. We thought, well, if the backup running back for the Green Bay Packers, whoever you thought it was going to be entering the year, whether you thought it was going to be Marshawn Lloyd or someone else, Josh Jacobs is clearly the bell cow. Josh Jacobs is the guy. They want to run it with him. And so when you have Josh Jacobs, he's a 4.3 yards per carry type of guy. He's not an explosive. He's going to move the ball, but he's not an explosive guy. It's about tempo. It's about control. And you mentioned Jordan Love. I wouldn't call him a game manager, but he's closer to game manager than he is to elevator. In, like, we think of the Joe Burrows of the world, the Josh Allens of the world, the Patrick Mahomes, they are elevator type of talents. Jordan Love doesn't have that, even though he showed a lot in that first year as a starter. The injuries really hurt, and I don't think the Packers are motivated to draft a wide receiver one. I don't think there is a wide receiver one that would fit well for the Packers in this draft. So I don't see Love really moving to it. Give me CJ Stroud.
Yeah, with Love, I see a guy that has lost a lot of confidence, especially given the fact that his wide receivers aren't catching the ball, and he feels a certain way. We're looking at guys that he has so much more of a better outcome than I think we saw last year. I think he battled some injuries. We saw a lot of these plays that were broken up or just not caught, like his wide receivers are missing these plays where he's throwing the ball pretty well. I do agree that he is more of a game manager than an elevator. I don't think that he's ever going to make Dontavian Wicks a wide receiver one like everybody wants him to be. And a lot of these wide receivers are in that same lateral, just that it's a linear line is what I'm trying to say, is they're all in that same bucket of wide receiver to me. And it's hard for you to really know who's going to have a big game or, come out and show out. And it's just like a crapshoot. And that's really, I think you can see that in the way the QB plays. He has no idea who's going to step up for him. And there's no go-to guy. And that's important for a quarterback to have that supreme confidence in a guy. And every elite quarterback has that one guy that they feel like can bail him out or help him out. Green Bay doesn't have that. And Bradley, I think you're right. They don't really have the option of taking a guy unless they're going to go super early, but I don't think that's going to benefit them. I think they have other needs, and I mean, realistically, as a Green Bay fan, do you think there's a way they can tap somebody in the second round right now as a wide receiver and get
I mean, look at who's going in the second round, getting mocked there. Like, I don't think Egbuka falls to the second round. I think he gets scooped up. You think of Burden, he's not going to be there in the second round. Are we looking at like a Jaden Higgins? I don't think a Jaden Higgins is gonna move. Then you have Jaden Higgins is in that Romeo Dobbs role, and I think the Packers, even though they suspended him for a game, they ran him out the next week. Right? The coaching staff was like, look, forget. One game, boom, and Dobbs was back out there. One player that would be interesting if there's a wish cast. I love Trey Harris. I think Trey Harris is a very, very interesting player. If there's one guy that could be a day 2 pick, Trey Harris would be a good fit for the Packers. But I mean, yeah, maybe a Tez Johnson would be interesting. That would be a day 3, nice little. He is okay. So he gets the Tank Dell comp because he is so tiny. He's small. He's like what, 5'8", 170. I don't know. I'm making it up. It's about that size. If you guys go to playerprofiler.com, you can search for Tez Johnson and you can see the metrics for him for yourself. In fact, that's what I'm going to do right now to make sure that I'm not speaking out of my rear end. But Tez Johnson, yes, he's very small and his BMI is, it's even worse. It's 5'10", 154. This is worse than the player profiler comp is Tutu Atwell. So Tank Dell, Tutu Atwell type. But here's why I'm very optimistic about Tez Johnson is he was very productive last year, 83 receptions, almost 900 receiving yards, 10 receiving touchdowns in back-to-back years, and he was used on special teams in both years. Despite his size, despite his 5th percentile arm length, he has a 54th percentile catch radius, which means that he was compensating for the fact that he has super short arms and still making catches. So this is the guy who goes out of his way to make catches that he probably shouldn't be making. And that's what Jordan Love needs. He needs a guy to go get passes. 93rd percentile agility, 83rd percentile burst, 70th percentile 40-yard dash. He's got speed, he's got agility, he's got burst, he's got catch radius that you want. Yeah, give me some Tez Johnson late for the Packers. How about that? There's a take.
Man, I don't know if I love that. I don't think they can really. I think I want one of the Jalen's over there. Like I don't know if I want. I don't like Tez Johnson over there. I don't. I'm gonna say it. I'm trying to be politically correct here. I just don't. Trey Harris, though, I love that. I would love that all day. With Jordan Love over there, I think that would. I still don't think anything's going to move the needle to get him over CJ Stroud. If this is the conversation we're having right now, I think it's fun to talk about who could help out the Green Bay Packers from a fan perspective, because I think they do need that they need an alpha. I think Trey Harris could easily be that alpha. He could be that guy that demands the ball, that is that proper X receiver on that team. But yeah, there's no way that I ever see a world where Love is going to outproduce Stroud fantasy wise. I think Stroud would hit just the volume that they get alone. I think Josh Jacobs would have to get injured to see Love hit the volume that CJ Stroud gets on a weekly basis. Just this is the volume alone, and it's not even, I think that CJ Stroud has a little more talent, but we're talking about fantasy here, and that's really all that matters. I think you're looking at a guy that's going to throw the ball a bunch. Joe Mixon is probably going to get a little help in the backfield, but his efficiency is not great. So I just think that Josh Jacobs is going to have a much better year than Joe Mixon. And that's really, deciding factor in the way that Jordan Love's going to get his volume outside of this year, I think. But
yeah, and you can bring that up as one of the comments from Fantasy Fitness. Like he says, Love averaged 16.4 completions a game for his career. So that is pretty low volume. Yeah,
it's low volume. And I was trying to be nice to Bradley, but Bradley knows. He gets it. All right, let's take it one more for this little skit we have. So Kyler Murray or Baker Mayfield? This is a lot closer than I want it to be. But Bradley, what do you think? You taking Kyler or Baker Mayfield?
Give me Baker Mayfield. For similar reasons that we were talking about Drake May and Bo Nix. How much confidence do we have in the coaching staff in Tampa and the offensive weapons in Tampa and the scheme in Tampa and just all of the confidence that Baker Mayfield has as the quarterback? Like all of those things, I think, favor Baker. When we talk about Kyler Murray, he is 6 foot. He has struggled over the past few years in terms of recovering from his injury. He tore his ACL. He just has not been the same in terms of a rusher. The first 2 seasons, over 90 rushing attempts. Over the last 3 seasons, hasn't had has not gotten to 80 in any season, partly due to the injuries, but partly due to the fact that he was hesitant to run. There were quotes coming out of the Cardinals brass earlier this offseason saying that Kyler Murray was hesitant to run throughout the season. And even Kyler admitted that in a recent interview that he was hesitant to run. He says he wants to run more. If he runs more, that's bad for the passing offense. But also, are we confident of Jonathan Gannon scheming for Marvin Harrison plus? The evidence from year 1 of Marvin Harrison is no. They were just having Harrison run down the field, just go, and maybe Kyler will throw it to you, and it's contested catches. And that's one aspect of Harrison's game that he can be good at from time to time, but it's not the whole package. And when you silo such a great talent like Marvin Harrison to do something like that, you put Malik Neighbors in the same position, he's in trouble too, right? He's going to put out a top 36 wide receiver season instead of a top 12 or top 5 or whatever it is. Baker Mayfield knows where his guys need to get the ball, whether it was Jalen McMillan last year, whether it was, we've seen Godwin and Evans and even Cade Otton having massive fantasy games. Baker Mayfield is willing to get into shootouts with teams. Kyler, not so much. So there is this organizational confidence that backs the player. There is the scheme that backs the player. Todd Bowles has been there for some time, and we've seen what Todd Bowles has been able to do. So with Baker Mayfield, give me Baker over Kyler Murray.
Yeah. Maddog, what do you think?
I'm taking Kyler. I think, he said he's going to rush some more, so we have to believe it. That's gospel now, right? He has an elite tight end in McBride. I think they need to adjust the usage of Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think that they can give him all the difficult downfield throws. They have to give him some crossers. They need to give him some layup targets. And I think we're going to see a bit of that this year. Baker has lost Canales. Now he lost Cohen. Mike Evans is fighting Father Time. Chris Godwin is injured. How is that going to heal? Does McMillan step up? He seems like he's a fantasy favorite right now that everybody sees this meteoric climb coming from him. I just don't know. I think that's why I'm going to go with Kyler. I think that rushing floor is there, as we saw from Baker. Sorry, I pulled it up. He had just under 400 rushing yards, but that is that's the anomaly, right? He's been rushing for under 200 yards every single year. So I think that kind of comes back down, and that's why I'm going to lean Kyler.
Man, I think that if you asked me this question about 6 months ago, I still would have said Kyler is going to rise up a little bit in my rankings, and he's going to make it into that Baker Mayfield range, but it's not going to happen anymore for me. I don't feel good about it. It's not that I don't believe Kyler can rise up a little bit from where he is right now. I think Baker is in that perfect home. He's found his home. He has found his people, and it's like he is completely comfortable. That dog that Baker has, Kyler does not have. And Kyler would have to get off of the roster that he's on right now, and I think completely just start over for him to just get that drive that he originally had that made him such an electric fantasy quarterback. He's thinking about himself more. He's thinking about his career. He's thinking about longevity. He just wants to be comfortable. And I think the running thing is probably going to never get back to where it was that made him that elite fantasy quarterback. Even if he jumps a little bit, I mean, we're talking about a guy that only ran for 572 yards last year. And that is a far cry from what he was doing when he was a very relevant fantasy quarterback. So he would have to essentially double that to hit the ceiling that he hit once upon a time. Baker Mayfield, on the other hand, threw for 4,500 yards last year. And I don't think that's really going to dip too much because we saw that he could produce with whatever. He could produce with Cade Otton and Jalen McMillan last year. And that was all he really had. And he was still throwing the ball for 300 yards a game. So I think that you could plug and play anybody. You could say that Godwin is injured. You could say that Mike Evans is going to meet Father Time. And I still think that he's going to produce close to the same numbers where Kyler has to run a lot more. And whenever he runs a lot more, he's never playing a full season. So that's what's scary about Kyler for me. It's going to be Baker Mayfield, I think. And that's almost comfortable. And I hate saying that, dude. I really do. Kyler's not even in my top 12 dynasty rankings right now. And man, it feels gross. It does.
Kyler Murray or Drake May? There we go. Kyler Murray or Drake May.
Kyler's value. Where do you guys have Kyler right now in your overall rankings? If you're gonna throw him out currently, like where is he? Who's he next to?
I mean, he's after Bo Nix.
Sure, he's after Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Is he after Brock Purdy?
I think he's ahead of Brock. We'll get to Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is another player I want to talk about. But give me Kyler over Brock Purdy. It's a premonition.
Yeah, I have that as well.
Yep. What about Bryce Young? Kyler or Bryce Young?
Kyler still.
Still Kyler.
But Bryce Young could be Baker Mayfield level by the time we are this time next year.
Could be. They're a fun team to watch. There's a lot of fantasy implications in Carolina right now, where I think that we're going to see some guys in the rookie draft shoot up the board that land on that team, and it's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're looking at a team that desperately needs some help on the offensive side, so it's fun, man. We got this guy in the chat right here talking about Drake May. Look at that handsome dude.
Go Grindberg.
All right, Grindberg. Let's talk about, QBs in the consensus that have extremely high value that we see falling after this year. And maybe Brock Purdy is in this conversation. And we're talking about the fall of CJ Stroud is understandable, but we are looking at our current draft and he was the 102 last year. And that was just a consensus ranking. We're looking at a guy that is going in the, where did he go in the second? I don't have it up right now, but we're talking about almost a round and a half fall for, CJ Stroud went 309 in this draft, and that's super flex. Right. And he was going where I guess Chase and Lamar Jackson are currently right now. Is there anybody that you see highly ranked as the consensus quarterback, Maddog, that you think is not going to be there next year?
He's a little bit lower, but the most recent sample size I have is Bo Nix went 206 in the last startup I'm in, and I think he's going to fall back to kind of that 3-4 turn. I just, like I said earlier, because I don't think the ceiling is there. I think he falls down a little bit. It's not going to be tumbling down into the 5th or the 6th, but I think in the second round or even at the 2-3 turn is a little bit too high for my liking.
What about you, Bradley? Who are you dropping down in your board next year?
Yeah, the answer for me is very clear, and it's Brock Purdy, San Francisco quarterback. Look, he's lost Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk is probably going to come back week 9 of this year. George Kittle is going to be 32 during the season. We saw a lot of good things happen with George Kittle over the last few years, and we know that elite tight ends hold on for a while, but we've also seen him deal with injuries when he's been given heavy workloads. Jawan Jennings is just a guy plus a good scheme. Ricky Pearsall, he's a mystery box. The 49ers have not yet given Brock Purdy the contract either. It is very possible that the San Francisco 49ers trade him even before they sign him to an extension. One of the things I was talking with Ryan Reynolds about last night was if a quarterback presented themselves during the draft as a value somehow, would the 49ers be interested in taking a quarterback and not paying Brock Purdy? I think the answer would be yes. That would be very interesting. So when we talk about a player who has fell into the perfect spot, that the team has not shown an urgency to sign to an extension, it's Brock Purdy. And if he moves to somewhere else, we could see him tumble down to, because right now in the Dynasty startup that we were in, the player profiler group, he's at the 3-7. Tell me he doesn't fall past Bryce Young in the end of the 5th round. Shedeur Sanders in the 6th round. 7th round was Tua, right? I think that's where we could see Brock Purdy falling, especially because he's only a pocket passer. He doesn't offer a lot in terms of his legs. Last year was an anomaly because he had 5 rushing touchdowns on 66 attempts. Like, that was facilitated out of necessity. That was not because he's known as a rushing quarterback. It's not part of his repertoire. It was necessity. So there's a lot of pathways for Brock Purdy to fail, and really only one pathway for him to succeed and to pay off even mid-3rd Dynasty startup. And that's for all of the weapons to be healthy, for the system to work. And we've seen time and again that just pieces break in the San Francisco 49ers offense. McCaffrey is aged. He missed just pretty much the entirety of last year. There's a lot of concerns about the 49ers, and they just may want a fresh start. So Brock Purdy is one that is quietly the most in jeopardy to fall.
Yeah, I like that. I think that Brock Purdy is definitely on the list for me. It's probably somebody I was going to chat up about if nobody talked about him before me. I know that we talked about him a little bit earlier. I think Jordan Love has a good chance of falling into that range as well. And that's not because I don't think the Packers are going to be successful this year. I just think that he is going to be looking at a a Jared Goff type of trajectory. And I think that he's going to possibly not see the boom games that we see from Jared Goff, being surrounded by all these elite weapons. But we're going to see somebody that is going to throw the ball 15 to 18 times a game. And I think people are going to get fed up with getting 12 to 15 points a game at that range, because even though he's still a value, I think Jordan Love could be in that 6th or 7th round, when, you know, that other tier of wide receiver where Goff actually is. And we're talking about Prescott and Bryce Young. And I think Young is going to rise up a little bit. Now we're going to see the likes of Purdy and Love kind of settle in as a 5th or 6th round startup pick, which is still good value. But I think that we're going to see the floor as of last year be the ceiling of these guys, as opposed to, you know, improving on their original big time years. The value isn't going to dramatically dip, but I think we're going to settle in as something closer to in the middle, as opposed to something that's going to rise up. And that's just really, and then I think the first 5 or 6 guys on that list are going to shake up a little bit. But we're going to go into that right now, because we're going to talk about guys that are going to rise up in consensus. So, Bradley, I'm going to go to you. Who do you think is going to rise up in that rank? We did touch on a couple guys that we saw rising a little bit, but how do you see, you know, these tier of quarterback, where it's JJ McCarthy, Penix, Trevor Lawrence, any of these guys going to jump up the board for you?
You know, I love JJ McCarthy. I think if we're talking about like that range, who's going to jump, I love McCarthy. It is the perfect ecosystem environment, and he sat for a year. And Sam Darnold, we're talking about Sam Darnold put up a Pro Bowl year in this environment, and Sam Darnold still had his warts. Like, the Minnesota Vikings fans were not convinced, and that's why the Vikings moved off of Sam Darnold. They knew what Sam Darnold was, and they know what they have in JJ McCarthy. McCarthy is the guy. He had the strongest arm at the combine. If you remember from a year ago, he had the strongest arm of the combine. He had agility. He has mobility. It's a shame that he missed his rookie year. He has Jefferson. He has Hawkinson. He has Addison. Aaron Jones is still dynamic. They brought in JP Mason as an RB2. Jalen Naylor proved that he could be a wide receiver 3 in this offense last year. And O'Connell wants to pass the ball. We project every year the Vikings are a top 3 pass attempt offense. And when you are throwing the ball at high volume to Justin Jefferson, to Jordan Addison, to Hawkinson, it spells fantasy points. Then you sprinkle in a little bit more mobility than a Kirk Cousins, or a little bit more mobility than a Sam Darnold. Yeah, JJ McCarthy, we could be talking about him in the Justin Herbert, Baker Mayfield realm, like that 2-3 turn type of play. But I also want to give like a let's move up a little bit. I think the Chiefs, with one more year, a year from now, Matt Nagy will not be the offensive coordinator. They're going to fire Matt Nagy in 1 year, and that will unlock Patrick Mahomes. What has been hurting Mahomes over the last couple of years has been the hiring of Matt Nagy. Mahomes has finished as the total points quarterback 8 and quarterback 11 last 2 years. He's thrown 25 interceptions in the regular season during that time. It's because of the coaching. It is because of the coaching. It's because of the coaching. It is, oh, Travis Kelce is losing a step. Oh, it's this, that, the other thing. They don't have the weapons. They have Xavier Worthy. They're getting Rashee Rice back. Travis Kelce still is a savvy veteran. There are other pieces on this offense that are very good. Patrick Mahomes is the number 1 talent in terms of quarterback talent in the league. The problem is that the offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, was fired for a reason from Chicago. We know he's #not good at coaching, but I don't know if he has something on Andy Reid. I don't know what the deal is, but this is his last year's offensive coordinator. Mahomes cannot sustain being this bad at the quarterback position from a statistical standpoint with Matt Nagy still in. And the firing of Nagy and replacement with even a league average offensive coordinator moves Mahomes back into the 102, 103 conversation, maybe even the 101 conversation.
I am aligned with all of those takes. You're on a JJ McCarthy podcast, by the way, so that's definitely something that we endorse for sure. I think that both of us are in agreement that JJ McCarthy is going to, I mean, you know, you nailed it. I think as a whole, we're talking about a guy that, you know, is taking over for Sam Darnold, and they had him much higher than Sam Darnold in the offseason. I mean, Sam Darnold was, we saw who started all the preseason games. We saw the guy that was going to be the starter up until that injury. And that's really, you know, just a testament to, you know, they viewed him as higher than Sam Darnold, and we just saw what Sam Darnold did. So in that offense, with that scheme, with that zone that they're working out of, it is what it is. You know, JJ McCarthy's going to eat. Maddog, do you have anybody that you want to add to that list that you think is going to rise up on the boards?
I do. I just want to say about, well, kind of piggyback on what Brad said about Mahomes. Like, he finally has something to play with or play for again. Sorry, you know, losing to the Eagles, but that's right. It wasn't Tyreek Hill leaving. I think it was more Bieniemy leaving and Nagy coming in. Going into my quarterback that I think is going to rise up the boards is Bryce Young. I think we saw, you know, his confidence was an all-time low where he got benched for Andy Dalton. He kind of had a rough start to last year, but from week 12 to week 18, he finished with 3 interceptions. He looked comfortable. He was being more mobile. He didn't have that many weapons to throw to. There was a little bit of an emergence with Jalen Coker. Adam Thielen was there, but Bryce Young kind of showed flashes of what we saw when he was in college. So I think that's why he's going to have a bit of a rise.
Yeah, you guys took away everything that I was going to say on this podcast about this, so I appreciate that. But I'll throw in, I think this is kind of a little spicy, but I'll throw in Justin Fields to this list. I'll say that Justin Fields does enough this year in fantasy and then in the real NFL to rise up, at least up until, you know, right now he's pretty late in drafts for a good reason. But I think that he's going to stretch this out. I think he's got 2 years in New York at least to show who he is. And I think that he's probably going to not be otherworldly, but I think he's going to do enough to get some wins on the board. And then also, you know, provide that confidence in that coaching staff and that front office where they think they have this guy that they can build around. And I think the addition where he's going to be playing with his college wide receiver and Garrett Wilson. And then also just the fact that, you know, they picked him, they chose him. I think that he was lacking a lot of confidence in Chicago. He got it back in on the Steelers there. And we saw what he could do in that short stint, but I think he's set up for success. And if he can limit the mistakes and that he can get the ball out of his hands in a faster rate, like he was doing at Pittsburgh, I think he's, you know, sky's the limit for him over there. And it's going to be growing pains for sure. But I think there's a good possibility that we see him at least produce at a higher level when it comes to fantasy, to the point where we're going to feel good taking him a little earlier in drafts next year. All right, so let's just kick it over to 2025 class, and then we'll get it out of here. So is there anybody that we see coming in the 2025 class that could be in the top 12 dynasty rankings next year between Cam Ward, Shedeur, Jackson Dart? Anybody you would see? Just obviously the obvious answer there might be Cam Ward, but do you feel any certain way about this, Bradley, as far as these guys coming in? Is there anybody that you would properly think that, I mean, this is all speculation at this point, and we can see what Cam Ward does and we see what Shedeur does, but do you like either one of these guys to possibly jump into a top 12 to top 15 rank next year?
No, neither of those guys. I think, you know, you think about like organizationally what it would take for Cam Ward to make that jump. I don't think that the Titans have it yet. Like, it would take another year to get all the pieces that the Titans need to create an environment for him to be able to do that. Shedeur Sanders, I just don't think is that good. The rumblings are that, oh, he's getting pushed up the board because teams need these quarterbacks, blah, blah, blah. Derek Carr's out for the season because of a shoulder injury, blah, blah, blah. The Saints may be looking. The Giants brought him in for a special visit. It's all, what are my initials? You know, like, that's the reality.
My guy.
Look, the reality, it's bad. It is, it's a bunch of malarkey. It's all smoke screens. Like, it's trying to, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these moves are to try to manipulate other teams to drive up the value. Now, could a Jackson Dart get drafted by the Steelers later in the first round, or move up into the late? Sure, maybe. I don't know. It's possible. But if there is one rookie quarterback who can make the jump into the top 12, we have to think of what scores fantasy points. And you either need to have high level efficiency, you need to have elite efficiency from a passing perspective. And that means that you need volume, you need weapons, you need an environment, you need all of those things if you're a pocket passer. If you are not a pocket passer, you do not need all of those dominoes to fall. You need really just one thing right, and the person in the chat put it. I was leading it. It's Jalen Milroe is the only quarterback in this draft class that has a pathway in year one to be a top 12 quarterback, increase his stock so much to be a top 12 quarterback. Can he get there? Is the percentage very high? I don't think it's very high, but he had 20 rushing touchdowns last year. 20 rushing touchdowns, 819 rushing yards for Alabama, a 4.51 quarterback, 16 passing touchdowns. Rushing gets you there for the quarterbacks. We've seen it time and again with Lamar Jackson, with Jalen Hurts, with Justin Fields. These players who are not polished passers. If Jalen Milroe gets a starting role, the opportunity is there. He has the pathway to be a top 12 quarterback asset because of the rushing. That is the only one that I see from this draft class having a pathway. Maybe I'm off there, but if I'm taking shots late in my drafts, it's on Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that's the correct answer there. I was with Matt Waldman about a month ago, and we did a rookie profiler on Jalen Milroe. He is Matt Waldman's QB2 in this class. So he has it Shedeur Sanders, and then he has it Jalen Milroe. So that's how he has it lined up. And I like his rankings. I like the way he does things, and he's one of those guys. And we don't have to see Jalen Milroe do much to have him vaulted into that range. Because, I mean, Anthony Richardson didn't do anything, and he was taken in the end of the first round at that point. Bradley just bailed on us because he was like, I don't like this take at all, man. I don't
my camera is acting up. So technical difficulties. Give me a second.
Yeah, he's there. So I mean, the fact that, we sat down with Waldman and he was just so high on Milroe, he's invited to the draft. We're looking at these guys. It could be a smoke screen. We could be looking at the next Will Levis where he's waiting. But if he gets that high DC and he's going to the Steelers as a starting quarterback for whatever reason, or you got to adjust, and you have to adjust just based off of the fact that he is a runner. He can produce points that way.
Imagine Milroe with the Steelers and an Arthur Smith offense. That is the dream for fantasy. Yeah. That is the dream.
And if they don't even go wide or running back there, they're talking about Jalen Warren and then Jalen Milroe as the running game for that team. But
I love it.
He could be a thousand guy. So he could easily run for 1,000 yards in that offense year one.
Let's go.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that could happen, man. There's a lot of things, and I can't wait. We're talking about being Are we 8 days, 7 days from hearing this over and over again? It's 7 days? Yeah. Oh, baby. I'm pumped, man.
You're welcome for the chime, by the way. I installed that yesterday.
Did you install that?
You're welcome.
I've been playing it nonstop.
My man versus machine, we did a first round NFL draft mock, and I played it every time because we were alternating. Ryan and I made a selection, so it was a little bit of fun.
Yeah, I'm having fun with it right now. Bradley, I appreciate you, man. It was fun having you on. What do you have coming up? What do you have in the fire right now that you want everybody to hear?
Yeah, make sure you guys are checking out playerprofiler.com/news. Of course, check out all the things on Player Profiler Now Plus. Some of the big things that I'm working on, I'm working with Jeremiah Retzlaff on the draft kit. So those are some things that are coming out. I've got the Packers.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Bradley, we didn't even hear from the Podfather today. Hold on. Let's talk about the rookie guide real quick, and then we'll get right back to you.
Theo Greminger is gone. We wish him all the best, but he did leave for us a great gift, the 2025 Player Profiler Rookie Guide. That's right. It is here. It is beautiful. It will help you dominate your rookie drafts this year. It features 60-plus player breakdowns, written primarily by Theo Greminger himself, as well as our proprietary NFL draft grades and strategy and tactics for dominating your rookie draft this year. We have a composite rankings with Theo's rankings, Cody, John Lobb, Jagger May, and Jax Falcone. It's right there on Player Profiler. It's $20. You won't find a better draft kit. You certainly won't find a better draft kit value. So go get it on playerprofiler.com.
Thank you for reminding me, man. I really, hey, when you do it, you do it. This is my favorite.
Oh, the Breakout Finder is live. That's right.
I love that, dude. I love that. I could listen to all day if I wanted to. I don't want to, but all right, keep it going, Bradley. I'm sorry
you can check me out. Stack Hunters is the Best Ball podcast with Dan Williamson. Man versus Machine, Wednesdays 9 p.m. Eastern. Next week, though, is the draft coverage. So a bunch of guys from Player Profiler getting together. We're going to be there was a little mistake in terms of which bay was hosting the draft. So we're actually all going to be in Tampa Bay instead of Green Bay. So that's where Matt got the Airbnb. Maybe the beach will be better than 40 degrees in Green Bay. We'll find out. But a bunch of the guys are going to be in Tampa, live streaming, giving in-depth coverage. I'm going to be one of them down there. I'll be getting some shows, lots of news. I'll make sure that the news is up to date for our people. It's just going to be the best, and updating projections live as well. I do my own projections in addition to supporting Evan Ringler, our data lead here at Player Profiler, in their own projections, because as I said, I got my start doing projections. That's the thing I do every year, and I've made my process streamlined, and that's been really helpful. But it also helps inform, like, I'm a big believer, iron sharpens iron. How can we make the experiences sharper for everyone involved? And so that's where you can find me, a variety of things as we're going forward. Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, man, it was a blast, man. I appreciate you coming on. Dane, you got anything going on? I know that you're going to plug the Discord over there, but what else we got cooking?
Still trying to work on some Dynasty theory stuff that, it's kind of slow going with work at overtime, but, watching Brad on here and the energy that he has, I kind of got to kick myself in the butt and get working on this and get it out to all of our patrons in there. And Brad, thank you so much for coming on. Your passion for the game is totally, apparent when you're here. Everything, the deep dives that you brought in and all the information that you dropped was a real pleasure tonight talking about the quarterback. So thank you for joining.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you've motivated him. You turned him into a new man. So I appreciate that. That's why I had you on in the first place. I really wanted to motivate Dane.
We took it off the X streets and brought it into the live stream. Here we are.
Yeah. Throw it on there, baby. That's how you do it. Make content.
All right. Did I convince you? Bo Nix, Drake May? You're still gonna hold strong?
I'm holding strong, dude. I still have. It's hey, we're going dynasty. We're in it for the long term, and if it's redraft, I'm with you all day, baby. You know, we are a dynasty show through and through.
Love it. Love it.
And tomorrow we are dropping our rookie profile. So I was with Derek Brown for Fantasy Pros, and we are talking about RJ Harvey. It's an hour-long pod of just RJ Harvey. So buckle in and tune in for that, dropping tomorrow morning. But otherwise, we will catch you guys next week. Follow Bradley at FF Stalder. FF Stalder, baby. Okay, not Stadler. All right. Catch you guys next week. Bye.
Right back to business as usual. Straight out of what's under my cuticle. I blocked it, they picked up my coffin. Ain't it funny how